Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick DiClemente. Good to have you with us tonight. And tonight we'll be doing the chart of our guest, Vicky, coming to us from Alaska. I wanted to mention a few things before we get to her chart, a couple of reminders. If you're new to the show has been on about 4 years. The origin of the show was to be a discussion group. I've done so much astrology for so long, I don't want to teach the whole class. It doesn't have any linear following. It is jumping around the different subjects and different things that come to my fancy each week. And then what's happened recently is I've been leaning towards helping people that feel stuck. And I really seem to work the best with people that are that way, because that's why people go to astrologers now. Used to be looking for a mate. Now it's looking for life direction. And what I find is interesting now is people are getting confused between being stuck and figuring out where they're going. And I really think it's two different things. But I guess it doesn't matter that much. But anyhow, usually the chart will show where the blockage is. And once you get the blockage moved, or at least a little bit moved, usually the unstuckness starts to happen. Also wanted to mention to people, if you do want to learn astrology, I do not teach anymore. I did it for 32 years, but I put a 10-week course out here on this show. I put a free 10-week course. I did it for 8 weeks, and then COVID hit. Then I skipped 2 weeks and I finished it. So just search on YouTube for Rick DiClemente beginning class. And you'll see 10 full weeks for the beginner. Houses, angles, planets, signs. And after 10 weeks, you'll have your basis down, your basics, from which you can start to do your real learning. But it'll cover the basics for you, and it's just like I were teaching you live. And before we start anything, we have to always check in with Susan the Traveler, who's up in the Northwest. Where are you now?
Still in Florence, Oregon till tomorrow.
She likes Florence, Oregon.
Well, I'm going for a longer stay in certain places. So this was one of them. Okay, well, you get revved up, and we want to know where you go next. Did you hear that they found the man who was paired up with Gabby Petito? They found his. Yeah. They've affirmed that's his body, which is an intriguing case once we start to see that. Poor little girl, I saw her chart. She was a little helpless Pisces, and she was just, you could see it when you saw her interviewed. She just got run over by life. She just was too sensitive. So sad. Anyhow, let's welcome Miss Vicky. It sounds like Fred Rogers talking here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And I've read for you before, and I've studied your chart today, and your chart is hiding here on my screen. Let's get this up and running, and we'll dig into you. I know you're an Aquarian, and let's take a look at, I know you work and live in Alaska, and you were born there, and you've lived in the lower 48 at times, and we need not know too much about you. I'm going to do what I do regularly with clients, though. It really helps you a lot to know something about the parents. But if you let the client go, usually they'll go on too long about the parent and the stories about you. So what I find real helpful with people, this really helps me. Sometimes I will look at mom or dad's chart, even without the birth time, if I really feel like there's a big influence. But what I usually do is I say, what sign was mom?
Libra. She's a Libra. October
She's
2nd.
a Libra. She's a living, and she's a Libra. Then I ask this general question. I sculpted this question on purpose. Between the ages of 5 and 15, how did you feel when you were with your mother?
Lost.
Okay. A lot of times when I ask the question, the person starts describing the mother. I'm not asking that. And you said you felt lost. Okay. Very good response. And now let's follow up a little bit. Why did you feel lost?
The household was somewhat dysfunctional, and so I didn't feel like she was there.
Okay. Having a parent who was not available is the most common answer. Now, with Libra mothers, one of the common reasons is because the mother is so busy socializing, because they just are social beings. They want to be out with their friends, etc. Was that the case?
I think she was busy trying to manage her life. I had 3 younger brothers, so
okay.
I think it was more about managing. Just
okay, but in the long run.
Pardon?
Good.
But yes, I mean, she was social at that time.
Well, in the long run, what I'm looking for is, did you get the normal mother-daughter goodies that you need? Did you get
No.
Okay. That's unbelievable how common that is, and I'm sorry. But that's what I'm looking, because then I got to start sensing, what did you do instead? Next question about your dad. What sign? Is he alive?
No.
What sign was it?
July 13th.
Okay. Now, usually Cancer fathers are usually very, very close to the children and emotionally involved. How did you feel when you were with Dad?
He probably more afraid.
You were more afraid of him. Why was that?
It was like I said, it was a dysfunctional family relationship.
Okay, dysfunctional. Now, one of the things we want to look for right off the bat is Cancer father, Libra mother. Did he make your mom his mother?
He was gone a lot, but when he was here, I guess you could say that.
That's very common with Cancerians. All right, let's go into your chart now. I asked those basic questions so I can get a footing. All right, here's your chart. I got my monitor running. I can see, and at first glance, your chart is not hard to figure, but I want to tell you a couple of things. The Uranus and Pluto I want to talk about. The Uranus and Pluto were dancing back and forth with each other from 1960 to 1971. Those are the 60s. It was 11 years, actually. And these two guys were exact for the first time in October of 65. So you can see, you being born in 63, Uranus was approaching, Pluto was approaching. And look what you noticed in 63, in 62, in 61. The world, you had the Cuban Missile Crisis. You had all kind of things going haywire, and you had the pleasantness and the sleepiness of the 50s starting to break up. And it was a really volatile time. Now, think about Uranus and Pluto. They got together at the 18th degree of Virgo. Think of what those two would have been like if they had joined hands in Aries or Aquarius or in Gemini or Leo. And what explosive they were, and that was in the sign of Virgo. Virgo is very tame. So what I'm saying to you is this. These are two very explosive planets. It's very common. I have many charts where Uranus and Pluto are together. A lot of people have an opposite Jupiter. A lot of people have an opposite Saturn, because Saturn came up here about 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have Uranus and Pluto with Chiron and Saturn. A lot of people, would surprise you. And what you have with this group of people is they're sitting on a kind of quiet volcano. Now, she's already an Aquarian, so you don't have to put too much V into the word volcano. But what's happening in them is this quiet reserve that's about to explode. Now, after October 65, you're right in the middle of the Beatles. Look at the explosion that happened. Now, we want to examine this, but I want to give you a little background on it, and I want to tell you how common it is. Because one of the weird things about it, no, I don't want to get, let me see if that's right. One of the really strange things about it is while that was going on, Uranus, which is 84 years around, stayed opposite Chiron, which is 51 years around. But it just so happens Chiron has such a weird orbit. It goes out and then close and goes out. It just so happened that Chiron was opposite Uranus, wasn't even discovered till 77. But it's still active in these people's charts, even though it's 63. Chiron opposite Uranus is the birth of this feeling of alternative types of healing. That's what brought it to our consciousness. And that's where the healers have come forth. And they've all got this in them. So from 1952 to 1989, 52 to 89, 37 years, these two planets stayed in opposition to each other. And many of you have the Chiron also opposite Pluto. So many of you people that have this underlying, especially with Virgo, because Virgo is the nurse, taking care of people, fixing people. Many of these people have this underlying, I don't know where it comes from, need to fix people, to nurse people, to be a doctor, a nurse. That's one of the things it comes from. Now take a look. We've got 3 planets in the 9th house of education, higher ed, and we got 4 planets in the 3rd house, which is the mind itself. You got seven planets involved in these 2 houses. This is all from the birth time, 234, in a wonderful town that Ave would like called Susanville. She was born in your town, Susanville, California. Now, when you see a lot of planets, I have a lot myself in this area, you have a person who's got a real active mind, they're very interested in things, they want to learn about stuff, etc. Now, remember, she's an Aquarian and Uranus is sitting at 4 and ascendant's at 2. So we know Uranus is really strong in her chart because squares to the ascendant are very powerful things. Okay, what do we see? Saturn is 2 degrees from the sun, and the sun in Aquarius is co-ruled by Saturn. So you have Aquarians that are usually leaning towards the Uranian side of Aquarius. You have other Aquarians that lean towards the Saturnian side. And don't be surprised if they flip back and forth between the 2. That's just why I call that sign contrarious. Okay? Because they're just built of opposites. They just are. And what it really means is they're intelligent enough to look at one truth and realize the opposite at the same time. That's true and that's true. And they see the truth of the whole thing. One of the brilliant things about Aquarius. Okay, now look closely now. We've got Jupiter next to Chiron. It's 7 degrees apart. We got the moon in Taurus, which we really like. Now, let's take a look at that. Mars is up in Leo. The moon is in a fixed sign of Taurus. The sun sign is in a fixed sign of Aquarius. Saturn is in a fixed sign of Aquarius. We do have Sag rising, which is mutable. We need something mutable because we're getting so much fixedness. Let's go in closer. Remember, Mercury can only be 3 places. Mercury has to be in the same as the sun sign or next door. Mercury, in this case, is in Capricorn. So the Mercury is stationary, which means it was going retrograde or was going direct and it stopped on the day she was born. So you have these Saturnian sides to Aquarius. You got these Uranian sides to Aquarius. The Saturnian side is buffered by an added to by the Mercury and Capricorn. The Uranian side is added to by the Uranus squared to the ascendant. So we're still with her. We're going back and forth, and we're not going to try to decide. We're just building with a pencil. Number 3 lit, not even number 2, real light. She's very Aquarian. She's very Capricornian. We know she got a lot of Virgo in her. We got a secret explosiveness there that could have exploded already. We don't know. Look at this grand cross. Neptune, Moon, Sun, Saturn, Mars. 16, 15, 12, 11, 13. That's pretty close. You pay attention to the orb. How close is it? At its widest, it's 5 degrees with the Sun and Mars. Now, it's very rare to have Sun opposite Mars, let alone have Mars retrograde. That's even more rare. Very rare. That means that as she's starting to be herself, the Mars wants to be itself, and Mars and Leo wants to be very expressive. I'm going to do what I got to do. Now we get more aggression and more assertion. And the Sun doesn't mind if Mars gets assertive. You think the Sun would mind if Mars gets fiery? The Sun's made of fire. What minds is the Saturn. So the Saturn Mars is all about driving with your brakes on. Well, let's go forward, but let's be careful. Let's go forward, but let's be careful. Driving with your brakes on. The Sun wants to go forward. Doesn't know what brakes are. Mars has never seen a brake in its life. It's all gas pedals. So we got this interesting combination here, and it's happening philosophically. It's happening in her mind. It's almost like she's had 2 different schools of thought thrown her way. We don't know yet. Paint with a pencil. Then what's more interesting, you got the Moon opposite Neptune. Here you've got the Moon in its most grounded place. It's exalted in Taurus, the best place for the Moon to be, and it's opposite a big pile of water, a big body of water. So this is something that's really lovely. She's very sensitive. She's very loving to other people, but the Moon opposite Neptune can be kind of confusing. It's kind of like a Moon in Pisces. So we got these interesting things, and we're not trying to make any conclusions yet. We got the playful Venus in Sag. I've known a lot of people with Venus in Sag, and they're just that. They're playful, which is really kind of a nice thing. We got the conservative Sun. This is the 3rd house. This is the mind, how the mind works. And remember, I've told you when planets are near the cusp, the early part of the house, the early part of the house is the stronger part. So this Sun Saturn is very strong in the 3rd house. So this means that she's got a very disciplined mind. Even though Venus in Sag is playful and Sag is rising, what's the ruler of the chart? Jupiter in Pisces. My girlfriend has this. It's a wonderful placement. Jupiter in Pisces, it's at 15. It's starting to affect the 4th house. Planets affect the next house when they're 4 or 5 degrees away. Not like signs. There's no cusp with signs. There is a cusp with houses. So Jupiter, because it rules Sag, because Jupiter is a ruler of the sign it's rising, this Jupiter is a ruler of the chart. Jupiter in Pisces is a very nice placement because Jupiter is a co-ruler of Pisces. Jupiter is, let's expand. And how are we going to expand? Well, we're going to expand by just loving everybody. And that's very Aquarian to begin with. We're going to expand by loving everybody. Remember what I told you. I'll write a book about it someday. The van pulled up in front of your house and said, get in. That's Jupiter. Get in. The door slides open, your friends go, get in. And some people say, well, where are you going and when are you stopping? Jupiter in Pisces is you just get in and say, hey, it's great to see everybody. Let's go. You didn't even ask where you're going or when you're coming back. Jupiter in Pisces, you're just so glad to be with everybody. It's a beautiful placement for Jupiter. You got Venus, you got the moon opposite Neptune, another sign of spiritual advancement. What's happening? We're going to know more when we go to the 12th harmonic. So I'm not going too fast. We're just getting started. And what does it sound like to you already, Vicky?
It sounds like my life so far.
And then there you are living near all this water.
Yes.
Okay. That's
And
very
also,
good.
and also, you know, go full speed ahead, slam the brakes on. Full speed ahead, slam the brakes on.
If you didn't have that Saturn placement opposite Mars, you would just go. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you if you'd be better with the brakes or not. That's up to you.
Yeah. It works when I'm probably going too fast. Right.
Yeah. The gas pedal is not usually the problem. Stopping is usually the problem. Okay. So we've got an intriguing chart, and I have found that you're just not going to get the essence of a chart till you go to the past life. I mean, I feel for myself, 43 years, and I don't know how I did it in the early days, trying to discern all this stuff from the natal chart when it's not there. It's just not there. I think most astrologers have to really strain to get so much truth and evidence from the birth chart. When you get into the past life chart and start comparing it to this, it really starts to make sense, is what I'm discovering. Now, this is no coincidence that she's getting her reading now, especially since she's been read by me directly. But let's take a look and see. All we got to do right now, just take it nice and easy. Where's Pluto? You always start with Pluto. Pluto's about 24. So Pluto has just passed over this in the last couple of years. So in the last couple of years, this woman who has been a rather Capricorn type of mind, traditional, careful, color inside the box, Pluto has gone over this in the last couple of years. There's no remnants left. There's no remnants left of this careful mind because Pluto's in it. So she's become much more of a Mercury and Scorpio in the last couple of years. What's the difference between a Mercury and Capricorn and a Mercury and Scorpio is the Scorpio is much more deep. It's not as trusting. It's more investigative. It's psychological. So what you kind of take for granted with Mercury and Capricorn, that's what everybody thinks. Not when Pluto hits it. You're now looking behind the scenes to see, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Does that make sense? It would even make sense if you tell me that you've gotten a lot more into mysteries in the last couple of years, like murder mystery stories, etc. Investigative. And we also know with Aquarians, Aquarians have unbelievable minds. Well, how do you think that book covered it? They're organizers. And I told you many times what Aquarians are always doing is organizing the big mental plane. That's why they don't care that much about what you think. They're spending their whole life organizing these ideas. This thought, that thought, this author, that guy, that philosopher. Oh, that doesn't fit. Get that out. That fits. And that's what they're always doing. They're always doing that. And they're always also doing what? Studying the ramifications. These are very Aquarian words. If you got this and you got this, well, if you got climate change and you got a president that's doing nothing about it, then therefore, what do you think? Etc. That's what Aquarians are so good at, figuring out the ramifications of this plus this. So what else is going on in their chart? So we know that Pluto has gone over here. It's not opposite anything. It's not at a right angle to anything. We go to Neptune. Neptune's sitting at 21. Neptune is sitting at, it's just gone over her nadir, and Neptune's now getting away from here, finally. So what Neptune has done, Neptune's come across here very quietly, and in the last 5 or 6 years, as Neptune's gone over that Jupiter, she has gone through a real rebirth of quiet spirituality, a real strong sense, fumes, the mist of quiet Neptune that's as far from the intellect as possible. It's not about thinking, it's about intuition. So has that happened with you?
Yes.
Okay, that's excellent. And not only are you a better tarot card reader now, and your intuition is stronger and stronger, but what's really good about it is when Neptune is on this line, which it was, it can be really confusing. And almost always when Neptune gets near this line, the person moves near water. Almost always, because Neptune is water. Well, about 3 years ago, Neptune was right on that line, and I would not doubt it if you were very confused, feeling like you're standing in quicksand, couldn't get a footing. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. The reason for that is the people in the West don't put enough energy and focus on basing your life on spirit, like the Hindus do or the Buddhists do. When you take an American and put their life and base them on spirit, they don't know what you're talking about. It's confusing. But now that Neptune has moved on, this is when the productive side of it comes out. Now that Neptune's at 22, it's been away from you for a couple of years. You'll find that after Neptune passes, you'll get more constructive with that Neptune. As a matter of fact, there's a real good chance if you're going through a real strong Neptune transit and you call me for a reading, I might say to you, come back in 2 years. I do that with people because Neptune is so hard to read. It is so personal that you've got to work out your own spiritual stuff, that 2 years later, when Neptune has passed by, the confusion is over. But let's talk about that time period just to begin with, Vicki. About 2 years ago, this was coming 4 years ago, was coming 3 years ago, it maxed about 2 years ago. What happened with you in your home life? That's your home, that line. What happened to you?
I know that, what comes to mind as you ask that question is that I was really questioning my own spirituality and missing the old spirituality that I was very involved in the past. That's what pops up when you ask me that question. And so what I had to do was ground myself in the nature that was around me in order to stabilize. It felt like stabilize that spiritual part of myself. It felt like I had lost that connection for a while.
Especially with your Mercury and Capricorn, which was under the auspices of Pluto.
Okay.
You know, because Pluto wasn't having any standard old-fashioned answers. That doesn't fly with Pluto. Now, what happens with Neptune? I mean, Neptune doesn't come to screw you up. It's a marvelous planet. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, it's my favorite, but it's a bitch to deal with. But it works at the intuitive level, and that is the opposite of how Aquarians work. Aquarians want to work on figure, reason. And they're real good at it. They really are. But that's no time for reason. Sounds like a movie. Huh? Sounds like a book. No time for reason. When Neptune's on you, it doesn't care what you think. It wants to know what your heart says. So you find your best tool out to lunch. You can't grab hold of your best tool, which is your mind. Now that it's gone, what's happening now is I think you got the Aquarian and you got the Pisces, and you're blending the two and you're starting to compare the two. And there's every reason in the world to say that the two can work together.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before I forget it, the name of the show. Why do you feel stuck? Or how do you feel stuck?
I'm looking at my life and, like you said earlier, trying to determine which path to take. I feel like there is a change coming. And so I just, I think it's a part of that impatience. It's like, okay, I want to know what the change is and where it's going to take me. But
yeah,
I just keep hearing patience. And so I thought I would get with you to see if, I could figure out what this is all about. I'm sure the planets have something to say about.
Okay. First of all, you're not going to find out where to go, and you're not going to find out where you're going to get to.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Okay. That's the good thing about a Neptune transit, because you learn the emotional trust. That's what's critical. Emotional trust. And who is full of this energy, who is born with this Neptunian energy and blessed with this, is the Pisces. You may not know it because Pisces aren't braggarts. They're not going to hang it from a sign in front of them, but they're born with faith and belief. See, when you're all mind, you're still a step short. And if you read our book, the chapters going between the 11th sign of Aquarius and the final sign 12 of Pisces is the final gap. It's the final lunge, because the first 11 signs, ending with Aquarius, are all psychological. And the final stage, you got to put the mind aside and you start trusting. That's like a Pisces, what you think. And most Pisces don't care what you think. They want to know how you feel. Did somebody say something?
That was me. I was going to say, I think that's what, every so often I'll be mulling it over in my mind. And then I hear faith, or
That's
I hear
exactly right.
faith, I hear patience.
That's exactly right, because that word patience is coming from the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And everything is coming from the Holy Spirit. I can already tell, talking to you, that Neptune has had its effect. Now, if I'd have talked to you when Neptune was exact, we would have had more confusion and weren't sure. That's why I tell them to go away for 2 years, come back, because it's just so difficult on the astrologer, let alone the client. Okay, very good. So we got a little of a mixture going on here. Now, there is a Jupiter return approaching. Thank you, Claudia. Let's take a look at that. All right. We see Jupiter at the end of Pisces, and Jupiter right now is at 20. We've already had, okay, we got Jupiter 22 Aquarius right here, and the Jupiter return is coming next year. Okay, that'll be marvelous. That'll be really wonderful. And that will really make you, what Jupiter does is it just makes you sure. You just know for sure when it hits. You just, no doubt about it. That's why so many Sagittarians have gambling problems, because there are times when they just know and they roll the dice and they win. But then when it passes, they still think that energy's still around and it's gone, and they end up losing their money. That's what can happen. Now let's find out for sure. Let's not mess around. And I don't watch Jupiter that much, but let's take a look at the chart side by side. All right. So looking at her chart, here's Jupiter now. There's Jupiter at birth. So let's jump by months. And we're going to jump forward. Watch Jupiter advance until it gets to 15 degrees. So it's going to go, and then it's going to get real close. It's going to hit first. It's going to hit first. Around early March of next year. Then it's going to go past and come back. So early spring of next year, you're going to have your Jupiter return. Now, It's going to go into the fourth house. You're going to be feeling really good. So what I think is going to happen, it's going to start bringing all that spirit. It really works together well with Neptune. It's going to start bringing that spiritual stuff to you, and you're going to start feeling like, God, I'm on the right track. What is it? Is the third pass the kick? No, I don't know, Susan, whether the first, second, or third pass is the one. I've studied it for years. To me, the first pass is always the strongest one, sometimes the third. You can have 1, 3, or 5. But anyhow, let's concentrate on the whole time period. Jupiter makes you feel confident, makes you feel right. Jupiter, I don't know how else to put it to you, but you ever have a pair of dice and you're playing a game and you need a number and you just know before you roll it that you're going to get it? You just know it. Yeah. That's Jupiter. That's what it is. I don't know how you call it, what you call it. Anyhow, we're going to see a lot of affirmation. It's going to kind of come into your home. So if there's any confusion about the home or where you're living or what to do with the home, a lot of those things will be affirmed, confirmed. Also, if you start to feel like getting a second home, even like a ranch or a vacation place, Jupiter is always about let's expand. But let's get to the issue here. The issue is life direction. Let's not get too scattered. That's one of the problems with Jupiter. You get too scattered. All right. Now, so we see back in the birth chart, we see Pluto, we see Neptune, and Uranus is the other big boy right now at 13 of Taurus. Uranus is going back and forth over the moon. Uranus has been going back and forth over the moon. Uranus is at 13 moving back. So it's been on you for about 6 months, and Uranus has been hitting this whole grand cross. 13, 15, 16, 11, 13. So when they're that close, you just start to treat this whole grand square as one thing. So this grand square, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Uranus has been hitting it. And if you put the sun on the first house, then it's all coming from the bottom. Okay, so what's happening is this. You're under a major, major Uranus transit, far more than the other planets. Okay, it doesn't work like Neptune. It doesn't come and confuse you. Uranus brings you sparks of creativity, flashes. It brings you to an astrology show. It makes you start thinking about stuff that you normally wouldn't think of. Mercury and Capricorn. Mercury and Capricorn doesn't go to astrology shows. We're going to try the tried and true and use Excel. Okay, so what does Uranus do when it hits a grand cross? Remember the question Uranus always asks when it gets on you. It's coming from inside. It says, are you free? Are you being the real Vicky? You've done this with mom and dad. You've done this with other kids. You've done this with brothers and sisters. You've done all this stuff. But now, are you being the real Vicky? That's what it's doing. It's hitting a grand cross. And you got to take the sweat out of this stuff, everybody. 1971, I had my chart done. I was 7 years from astrology. And this astrologer put the fear of God into me because I got a grand cross too. Oh, don't look at it this way. These things are very positive. Now, you may have some chaos and you may sprain an ankle. But mostly what this is enlivenment. You're going to be Uranianized. How's that word? Well, let's go back to your birth chart. All right. What does Uranus do in this birth chart? You got Sun, Saturn opposite Mars, and you got Moon opposite Neptune. That means I'm going to go forward with my foot on the brake. Go stop, go stop, go stop. Where are you going, Moon, Neptune? I don't know. Where are you going, Moon Neptune? I don't know. I hope it's nice. There's a lot of uncertainty with these 5 planets. What about Uranus? Uranus doesn't even know what uncertain means. Uranus is, let's just do it. Let's go live off of an island in Alaska, which is where you are.
Yes.
All right. What does Uranus do in your natal chart? It's strongly placed in the middle of your philosophy. It squares your ascendant. It's very, very powerful. It sits opposite you, Jupiter, which is a real nice planet to be opposite. Let me see, is that right? Yeah. Okay. So what Uranus does, we're going to take our time with this. We're going to go into the 12th harmonic next. Uranus is the voice of, I'm different, I'm unique. Did you ever feel like you're going to do something and you're damn straight, it's got to be your way? And I'm not talking about being greedy or selfish. It's just got to be your way. Sometimes that's a Uranian energy. Well, that's what Uranus is doing to you. And what's the trouble with it? Well, your moon and Neptune wants to make sure everybody's involved, everybody's happy, everybody gets sandwiched, right? And the Mars Saturn is saying to you, well, we want to go, but we want to be careful. We want to go and we want to be real careful and be sure. And Uranus is like, the hell with you guys. I don't want all this caution. I want to just go. Let's go and explore and be adventurous and find the unique Vicky. That's Uranus. That's what's trying to get out. And it's been all over your moon for a while. And a moon in Taurus is not happy with Uranus. A moon in Taurus is about stability of the family. Well, my God, we've been here 6 generations and we've been planted ourselves on this soil. And that's moon in Taurus. Yeah. But when Uranus comes by, you can't have that. Something's got to change. So tell me about this feeling that you're going through.
As you're talking, it reminded me of, I was seriously contemplating at certain points running off to Thailand and working on an elephant.
See how Uranus is?
Yes, I wanted to do that. And then there's this other part of me, well, I have to stay here and my
if you're going to give me all these practical reasons that you got to stay there, pay the bills.
Yes, but see, it's my life is acting out exactly what you're talking about. So it's
okay. Explain what you just said. My life is working out like you just said.
Well, the fact that Taurus is in the Capricorn. Mercury, and maybe it's Mercury and Capricorn is saying, no, you have to stay here. And the
two Virgo planets.
Yes. And it's like the Uranus is saying, no, let's go to Thailand and work on the, elephant.
Okay. But you just said, my life is working out like you just said. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's what I was telling the stories for. I mean, let's go, let's not go, I want to go and express myself.
Okay, but when the needle's going back and forth between conservative and moving forward,
yes.
Where's the needle pointing now?
It's probably a little bit more conservative right now.
Okay. Now, I'm not going to...
That doesn't mean in 10 minutes it won't be different.
Right. I'm not going to sit here and push you towards Thailand.
Pardon?
All I'm going to do is tell you what Uranus is like.
Right.
Why does Uranus want to deal with elephants in Thailand? Okay. It's not stupid. It's not crazy. It's very, very common with Uranus that you want to go hang out with the monkeys in Kenya. It's just common with Uranus. The weirder, the better. Because Aquarians are gifted when they deal with something weird, they can see the norm in it. They can see everything in it. That old poem we've talked about, A Blade of Grass, study A Blade of Grass, Emerson, and you can know all of reality. It's true. It's true. Doesn't matter if you're in Alaska. Doesn't matter if you're in Thailand. But when you're being called like this, the problem is this. Can you afford to not listen to yourself? Because Uranus is not always going to be on that moon. You see?
Yeah.
It's not always going to be there. And number two, how much can you trust that moon? Well, I'm not sure how much you can trust the moon when it's sitting opposite Neptune. No, when sitting opposite Neptune is when you are prone to see what you want to see. That's the danger of Neptune. So the reason you go to Thailand is not to see the elephants, but it's to honor the part of you that's trying to guide you, which is your individual spark. It's your unique spark. It is that part Fred Rogers talked about. Seriously, there's no one like you when he did it. He did it in a very Pisces way, real gently. But that's what Uranus is. When you see some character come on stage, like a Jerry Lewis or a Robin Williams, these people are full of Uranus. This is the planet that makes you a character. Okay?
Yes.
Now, if you want to satisfy with the two Virgo planets and the Mercury and Capricorn and play it safe with the moon and Taurus and have your nice mud hole, then you can. But the problem with if you don't upgrade it now and then, the mud hole will start to crack because it doesn't have any new life energies. Now, I'm not telling you whether you should go or not, because I think that's a very complex question. So let's just stop what we're doing. We learned an awful lot. Let's go to your past life. Okay? This is a very exciting chart, really. Okay. In the 12th harmonic, which is this chart here, let's see what her habits have been through many lifetimes. This is, again, I call the past life the spiritual transcript. This is the overall attitude that you've had through many lifetimes, your experiences, especially in terms of, do I need to perfect this or add this or minus that in terms of my God attitude? Because this chart is about your God experience. Well, you got Venus in Aquarius at the top of the chart, really shining bright. That's you've been a friend to people for a long time. You got this very strong Uranus, almost like a bucket pattern over here. So you're very Uranian. You got Aries rising. Look at the sun next to Pluto. You've been very intense. You got these three. I got these three in my birth chart. No, I don't. You got Mars, Jupiter, Neptune in the sixth house. This means that for many, many lifetimes, you've been very pleased to serve people, work with people together. And the moon next to Saturn, here's the problem right here. This is somebody who's very passionate, very creative, very powerful with Aries there. But when the moon is even 9 degrees from Saturn, Saturn's always bitching in Virgo. It's just always bitching. Well, did you fill out that form right down? No, those two last lifetimes, they weren't too bad, but you did. And Saturn is a useful planet, but it's a terrible master. So we want to take a look at this. Watch this. We want to go back in time about 6 years, and we want to see what happened when Neptune was at 12 opposite the Saturn. Because this Saturn in the past life chart is the issue. It's what keeps you grounded instead of flying. So let's go back in time to the 12th harmonic. Let's go back by years. Here's the years, and we're going to take Neptune back to 12, okay? Okay, about 2017, Neptune was opposite that Saturn. So around 2016 and 2017, those 2 years, your unconscious mind was trying to teach you, let's get free of this Saturn. This Saturn's done a good job on a lot of stuff, but I think it's this Saturn being so careful and uptight and worrying. And if you really worry all the time, you're always going to find something wrong with your footsteps. So I think around 16 and 17 was a huge turning point with you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
What happened?
Yes. That was when I got my job here at this particular place in Yazinki.
Okay.
2016.
You moved there at that time?
I moved there 2 years before.
From where?
2014. I was in Montana for a year.
Okay, you were in Montana. All right. So what moved inside of you that got you to move in 2016, 2017? It's not the job. What moved inside of you?
Excitement at creating something new.
Okay, very good. Because we're all job oriented. We always say, that's when I had this job, that's when I had this kid. It's not what happens. Astrologically, different parts of you are lining up. So what happened to you in 2016 and 17 is this long-term spiritual caution you started to target and saying, you're the problem. You're the problem. You're being too careful. And what this can actually be, this is very difficult. This could actually be a voice of a priest 2 lifetimes ago. It can be a voice of the family a couple of lifetimes ago. I don't know exactly. But we see in the past life chart that you're really in pretty darn good shape. But that Saturn sticks out. And that Saturn says, well, before you take this lifetime in 1963 here, before you take this lifetime, let's make sure in this lifetime that you put Saturn with that Mars. Did you see that Mars? That Mars almost got away from you. Let's put that Saturn opposite that Mars. Let's make sure you're driving with your brakes on. Okay? So let's go back to your past life chart. It's very intriguing here.
It feels like tethered, like I'm tethered.
That's exactly it. Exactly. And we call it shackles. And what happens to the 12th harmonic during these readings usually is somebody is chopping up the shackle. They're breaking free of that your chains, okay, and you're getting freed. Well, why are you getting freed? It's not that you're getting freed to go see Thailand. It's not that you're getting freed to leave Alaska. It's not that you're getting freed to please somebody. It's always that you're getting freed to go back to God. There's only one reason. There's only one reason, in my opinion, because you never did leave him, but you left him unconsciously. You danced around and said, hey, I'll go be an individual for a while. And Neptune is speaking clearly, it's time to go back. So the 2016, 2017 was just further steps to get you back towards your origin. And your origin is the God self. Other people might call it the quiet voice inside, the feeling of bliss. You have lots of names for it, okay? But that's what was happening. And during that time, I guarantee you your shackles were weakened. I didn't say they were taken off, but they were weakened. They didn't have such a grab on you. And see, you picking up and going to Thailand is proof of it. It's not because you need to go to Thailand. It's proof of your ability to move around, because when you move around, the only problem you have is lack of faith. Well, where am I going to eat? Where's my money going to come from? What about my insurance? And what if I live with these people in this government? Right?
It's true.
That's how the murmuring ego does it. So you tell me what you think so far.
Oh, I was laughing because everything you even sounded like the voice in my head.
No, that's I'm not signing up. No, you're exactly right, because it's the same old bullshit to all of us. And what is the bullshit about? The bullshit's about one thing, Vicky. The bullshit's about one thing. One. Lack of faith.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's what it's about. And Aquarians and Pisces have a lot more faith than the rest of the zodiac does, because the rest of the zodiac is just not sure yet. They're still building. Aquarians end up living alone in the middle of Guyana and stuff. These people live in the weirdest places because they have so much fun. And I think one of the main things about it is they love being somewhere no one's ever been. Wow, I'm here and this is cool. And while they're there, they discover all the same human elements that you see in the middle of New York City.
It's true.
So, whatever you do, your moon of Taurus is always going to resettle you. Your moon of Taurus is too strong. But now is not the question of being resettled. Now it's the question of being strangled. Am I going to let it just keep me from adventuring? Because your moon is really powerful, and your moon is getting an opportunity since it lives opposite Neptune. That's a really vague way to live. All of a sudden, you've been years and years with your foot stuck in a quicksand, and here comes Uranus saying, let's pull you out, clean you up, put you in this Jeep, fill you up, see you later. That's what it's like. So it's not a matter of whether you go or not. It's a matter of whether you are listening and respecting the voice inside. And that particular voice is not the ego voice. That's the real Vicky voice. There's a difference. The real Vicky voice is the spark of God. It's the individual God that's in you that wants to be expressed. The ego's voice is always just paranoid, negative, and harsh. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we see what Uranus says. Now, let's go look at the sixth harmonic. And with that, she says, damn, I'll have a big drink of water. And I don't blame you. It's amazing what astrology does. If you know where to look, it's just phenomenal. Let's go look at your sixth harmonic. All right. The sixth harmonic is the destiny harmonic. It's the life energy. It is the soul's purpose. It is the hero's journey. Look at these two beautiful planets, Jupiter and Neptune at the top. These are the two planets of spiritual direction. It is the Joseph Campbell hero's journey. But the problem with Jupiter and Neptune in Capricorn, it's not like Jupiter and Neptune in another sign. In Capricorn, you feel a tug all the time to follow the Bhagavad Gita, to follow the Rahamashots, to do it in a traditional manner. Whereas if some people were put with a new age guru, they may do fine. You're not going to go do fine with those people. You need a traditional element because of this Capricorn. We don't want to shove the Capricorn aside. You have deep respect for the old tried and true gurus who have done it, proven it through their lineage. So this is a plus in your Capricorn favor. You see? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's why when we talked about Vedic astrology earlier, that might be something that you want to pursue, getting a reading in somebody good, because it would really pertain to you. Because Jupiter, Neptune, and Capricorn, Jupiter, Neptune is all about, boy, I'm in when you're talking spiritually, but Capricorn is the Yogananda way. He's the Capricorn. He's the tried and true message of the lineage. You see what I'm saying? So he's rather anti-Aquarian. He's not just, let's flip it out, put on a silver hat. Okay? What else do we see? Your sun is opposite Pluto moon. What does that mean? That means that you got a very intense, if I were to hire you and give you money to go do a certain part of my company, etc., you would go do something really intense with it. Because you're an intense person, you're very smart. And where does this sun, moon, Pluto go to? It all goes to Venus and Virgo. So what that means is if I gave you a lot of money, you would work hard, but what would you do with it? You would go out and train people. You would train people how to fish. You wouldn't give them fish, but you would train them with the very best fishing poles and teach them how. Because Venus and Virgo is all about preparing your people so that they can pick up and go and do it right. So we see an intriguing thing here. This is why you mix in the sixth harmonic. We see that the sixth harmonic has told us that you do better along a rather tried and true path, a proven type of lineage. And what do you want to do? It might even be medical with the Virgo planets, being a nurse and fixing things. We don't know. But Virgo planets are about teaching people how to do things right. But you're not just into it, you're passionately into it. You got Sun, Moon, Pluto hitting it. Remember?
Yes.
Okay.
And right now it's about leadership.
Okay, you got Sun,
Healthy.
Moon,
Healthy
Pluto
leadership.
with passionate energy going into Venus and Virgo. What do you mean leadership?
Well, there are dysfunctional leaders and there are functional, healed leaders. And
You mean in the world?
yes.
Okay, yeah, the world's a mess. It's an absolute huge turning point. Look what else you have here. You got this Jupiter Neptune, which can be marvelous, but it's opposite Mars, and the Mars is retrograde, and the Mars is in Cancer. So this Mars wants to be sure of itself, and it's not. It's not sure when it's opposite Neptune. And the only way Mars can be sure when it's opposite Neptune and Jupiter, there's only one way it can happen. And that is you run your activities past God first. You let him or she do the guiding. That's what it means. And that's not something Moon and Taurus wants to hear. And it's certainly not something an Aquarian wants to hear. See, an Aquarian eventually has to give up being Aquarian. Eventually, because that's what gives rise to the final side of Pisces, which is so malleable. That whole saying of when you die, you're reborn. I put my life in your hands, God, etc. That's the Pisces power. Everybody looks at Pisces like they're so weak. Everybody. Even most Pisces, they don't understand how powerful they are. They're their power versus force. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. Force is the strong survive, buddy. Power is, you ain't messing with me. I got the ocean behind me. So I think you're in the midst of a huge change. I think a lot of your huge change is being given an advantage since your Neptune's gotten involved and weakened some of those shackles. And I don't think that those shackles will come off completely. I don't think you need to. But we look in your 12th harmonic, we see that you're a very spiritual person, but like many, many people, you've got this Saturn in Virgo BSing you. Many, many, many people I see. Well, if you do it and you do it right, you'll get in the holy gates, the pearly gates. If you do it right, got to do it just right. You say novena, did you 8? Did you do it right? It's ridiculous, the shit we put ourselves through. Listen to some of the arguments people give you religiously. Some of the things they say. Well, you're beyond it. You're used to depending on your own mind. So how are you feeling now? You should be feeling confirmed in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Tell me what you're feeling.
As I said earlier, what you are describing with the planets is what's, what I see happening in my life or what I'm feeling happening in my life. And especially, about teaching people. I mean, I'm working with my coworkers and we're we're learning about leadership and what that's about. And I'm very passionate about that because I see that is a possible way of making a difference in our small area as far as creating healthy leaders.
Well, Aquarians are really, really into the environment. Mm-hmm. They're just major, big time. You know what else they're into? It's amazing. Herbs and spices.
I'm very
incredibly into that stuff. Now, are you a married woman?
I have a partner. We've been together for 14 years.
Well, my only point is, if you go to Thailand, would he or she be going with you?
Yes, he would.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Okay.
And we also are teaching farming here too. So
well, your chart, you're exactly in sync with your planets. That's exactly what your planets say. So the question I have at the moment is, why go to Thailand?
Sounds like fun.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a good Venus and
I think sometimes
that's a good answer.
Yeah, and to sometimes like going away will help you to reorient, and to come from a different perspective.
I think that's
when you live in a tiny place for 2 years where we've been locked down and haven't been able to go very many places. I mean, we don't even have a grocery store here. In order to get out of the town and to go grocery shopping, it's a boat or a plane ride. So
wow.
Yeah, so you kind of get you kind of get you feel stuck.
Yeah,
so,
I understand that.
Thailand is like the other end of the world.
Now, let me ask you this question now. Let's be honest about this question and answer. Do you feel as stuck now as you did before the reading?
No, it's helping me to have perspective.
Okay, that's exactly what's going on. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion astrologically. If you go to Thailand or not, I don't think it matters. What I think matters
I agree.
What matters is, are you going to listen to the unique Vicky in there? You can't let that unique Vicky be alone with that Saturn in Virgo. That Saturn in Virgo will beat the hell out of you. What a stupid thing to think. You can't, because the Saturn in Virgo, it gets all shriveled up. And it's really good at counting beans, and it should stay in the bean counting room. It's just the way it is. But it doesn't sound to me like it sounds like if you got an elephant on the island where you live, it would mix it all together. No, I'm sure you'll come to your right answer. I don't see anything else to really explore here. I want to do your solar return, but I think it's very important. A mammoth. Erica, once you get a mammoth. Oh, Erica, you're just too much. Oh, come see the mammoth. Man, you don't need to have a living. They're just going to be flying in left and right to see your mammoth. Not a perfect answer. I think we need to, they're cloning them in Russia. Yes, I heard. Okay. Do you see how this crowd gets me to go astray? They're really good at it. And I go off on the other tangent. Okay, I want you to have some time now. What questions do you have? You've seen what I do. It's really affirmed you. I'm going to confirm some more, but what questions do you have?
I think you answered most of them, and I can take a look at things from a different perspective now. I was wondering where that feeling of tethering, or I think you use a good word, shackles.
That's a Saturn.
Feeling was
that's a Saturn. See,
so now, well, I think I'm in my second Saturn return right now too, so maybe that's probably a part of it.
That's a big part of it, yes. And you do know a good bit about astrology. Let's go back to your birth chart. All right. In your second Saturn return, that's the sixth harmonic here. Here. Here's your Saturn at 13, and then transiting Saturn is at 7. It's been all over this area. Yes, you're in your Saturn return. And I tell you what, there's nothing bigger than when Saturn crosses this line. So you got a Saturn return and Saturn crossing this line the next couple of years. And that's really a voluminous in terms of what it means. First of all, the second Saturn return is the end of chapter 2 in your life. That's the end of I got to work hard and put a mortgage out there, pay my dues. And you start to just feel like, I don't want to worry so much. I paid my dues. I'm free to go chapter 3 now, which is my spiritual years. But when Saturn crosses that line at the bottom, that's a big story. That's a big story. What that means is this, and this is really true, and I've watched this a long time, and it's really true and worth looking at. All right. Let's follow this now. Saturn in the period of obscurity for 8 years. Saturn knows where it wants to go. It sees its new goal at the top. It starts heading towards the goal. It's going to take 14 years to get there. It works real hard towards it. It gets working harder with people. It reaches the top of its goal. It stays on top. It starts to decay. It starts to fall apart, comes back to zero. Saturn starts to fall apart. The life starts to become a period of obscurity again. So you just come out of your obscure period about 6 years ago. You're rebuilding a new self. Now your Saturn return is helping you. It's all going on in the mind now. The last couple of years, it's all been about your value system, self-worth. The next 3 years, next 2 years are all about getting your mind straight. Because when Saturn hits here in about 3 years, you're going to know where you want to go. It's just going to become clear. And where you're going to want to go is going to have a strong Virgo quality to it, because the sign at the midheaven is always involved. And it means you're going to want a certain kind of career, a certain kind of job. And when Virgo is involved, you want to express your perfectionism. You want to help fix things. You want to help teach people how to fish, etc. So when Saturn crosses here, it's really a big deal. Another thing, big deal. When Saturn crosses here, since this is the family, it's real common that you got to stop what you're doing and go back home and take care of mom and dad. Pay your dues. It's just really common. Happens all the time. Doesn't mean you have to, but it's very common. You have to go back, alter what you're doing to put mom and dad to bed. Okay? So Saturn, when it crosses here, go ahead.
No, I just said, okay.
Okay, when Saturn crosses this line, you'll become very clear what you want to do. And you will reach that peak 14 years later. And you've been at that peak before about 12 years ago. But your time at Virgo in the future will be a different octave than the time 12 years ago. So 12 years ago, you were in a similar high Virgo-wise, but then this next one that's coming in 14 years, 15 years, will be a higher dimension, more refined. So then you will work and you will be 15 years older. When your Saturn hits here, you'll get a lot of notoriety, even though Virgo doesn't want it. You'll get a lot of acclaim. You'll get in the newspaper, etc. And then the Saturn coming through starts to fall apart again. It's just been there, done that, and it starts to decay, and it turns back to zero. It blank and starts to rebuild. This is something that works with everybody. It always works. This is one way to validate a person's birth time, because it sets up the house structure. Okay, so your Saturn return, you're going to need to watch certain parts of your body, all hard parts, the knees, the bones, the joints, the teeth, the skin, because the skin covers the body. Those are the Saturnian areas. You can expect those parts to get older. They're just going to get older at a more rapid rate than you're used to. That's just what happens with Saturn. He's the old man of the zodiac. Now, if you start getting some pains in your teeth, etc., don't fool around when Saturn's nearby. Get it taken care of right away. You don't need to mess with an abscess. There's every reason to think you'll be fine, but when Saturn is around you, the number one way to deal with it health-wise is to stay loose. Walk and stretch. Walk and stretch. And Aquarians have a tendency anyway towards spasms and tight muscles. Doing yoga will be really good idea for you.
Okay.
So that's a foresight of what Saturn's doing. I don't know if you have any kids or not, but if you don't, okay. When people do have kids during their second Saturn return, it's very common. They just start to feel hands off. I'm not going to worry about you so much. I'm just not going to worry that much. Go live your life. I raised you. Go live your life. That doesn't mean they don't care. Okay, let's revisit the 12th harmonic, because that's the one in my book that really counts. And in the 12th harmonic, we see Venus in Aquarius is so important. that you go out there and work on a team, work on a project with a team. It's just critical to you. It's your 11th house ruled by Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
But you got Aries rising. So you're the leader. You're in a team, but you're the leader. All right. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Here's a happy worker, very happy worker, very happy to work together with people. Really nice. And the only difficulty in this chart, and even the Saturn moon is not that bad because it's 9 degrees. The only difficulty is this Saturn is square to Mercury, 12 and 8. And what that means is, no, you're thinking too loosey-goosey. You got to think more tight, more regular. You got to think the way things were done. You can't think the way you want to think. And that's just wrong. You can think the way you want to think. And see, that's where you coming into a reading and you getting this reading and you talking about these different Uranian energies, etc. That's where it makes so much sense. That's what you need now. You need a little sense of that Uranus part of you. What does it sound like? What does it want to do? Why does it want to do it? You can't, all of you, you can't let the safety parts of your chart win. The Capricorn, Moon and Taurus, Cancer energies, you can't give in to this pseudo safety because it's not real. You can't be safe. There's nowhere you can go to be safe. Lock yourself in a safe, and you won't be safe. Safety is with, I hate to sound like a broken record. Safety is with a firm conduit. I don't know how you describe it. Everybody's got their own spiritual connection. Safety is with a good conduit established that you trust. And it's not easy. So what do you think? I think we have done your chart up good.
Yes, thank you so much.
What do you think from the reading?
I think that I can allow myself to be more free now that I understand the different energies that are working together. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Okay, well, I reorient. I can be free. You know, I don't need
like recalibrating. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a real good way of putting it. I've never really heard that, but that's exactly what's going on. And I can see the real value of an astrology reading here, because if you were real deluded right now, and if Neptune were just dangling some mirror in front of you and fog, like the Republican Party, then I'd be really worried about you. But that's not what's happening. So I think all in all, when you've come through these spiritual lives, you've done well. It's just that you've got a tad of this dogma on you that you really can't be that free. You really can't do that. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have taken a lifetime. So you got to have some kind of uptightness in the chart to affect a new lifetime, a new incarnation, because that's why you take it, unless you're one of those wonderful souls that incarnate just to help people. And they are there. But I think you're in really good shape. And I think you need to get a mammoth up there. Get a damn mammoth up there.
Agree. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the comments that people are putting in the chat.
Oh yeah. Now let's open it up. We got 5 minutes left. Let's open it up to people if they want to ask you a question or
the ones that some of the information they were putting in the chat that I thought was helpful.
Well, I always read that when it's over, but I think we need to do a GoFundMe page. Send Vicky her own mammoth. And you thought I was going to give you a hard time. And I didn't. No, I think I'd like to talk with your mate because I think you're going to come to congruency with him. What's wrong with going to visit Thailand for a while?
Well, that's what I was thinking too. I can go for a visit. I'll let you guys know if I do that.
log in from there. If you find a mammoth when you get there, we're going to have a hell of a story. Anybody got a question or follow Susan? Susan sold her home and got herself a Winnebago type, and she's been traveling the northern USA, so she reports in. I know you watch the show every week. Any questions for Vicki, everybody? Yes, Ms. Erica.
I have a question about the work that you're doing to try to create healthier leaders.
Well, I found a person who online, his name is Simon Sinek, and we're taking a few of his classes to learn more about what that's about.
Sounds interesting. Sounds necessary.
Where do you think Simon was sent from?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, Simon says, where do you think Simon was? Where do you think Simon was sent from?
The internet?
That's it.
Uranus.
Yep.
He came from the internet. Simon of the internet.
Hey, Simon talks about this really great. He's got, I'm sure, Vicki, you know it. It's about finding your why.
Yes.
And this, I've been thinking when I look at your chart, you said that you felt like you didn't know how to move forward. I don't remember the words. And I was thinking Saturn has been back and forth on your sun. And, that can be a little heavy feeling, but maybe it's helping to define that for you at this point in your life. And finding your why, Simon Sinek, is so right. It so matches that. Yes. Finding your why, say he talks about, a company like Apple doesn't want to make phones. They want to innovate. They want to be ahead of their time. The phone is just how they did it. He's great.
You've heard of this guy? I never did.
Yeah. He does TED Talks. He's written books. Oh, okay. He's a corporate leader, but what he talks about is it's not just corporate. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and he gets very down to the root of where we need to look at ourselves. And he's a good guy.
Bringing humanity back to corporations.
Yes.
Well, thank
God.
God.
Uranus, another Uranian energy.
Thank God. And you guys, we're in such trouble from this Capricorn era. We upended so much. You Aquarians have to step in. It's not time for Pisces. It's your ball here soon. You're going to have to solve a lot and get everybody involved. And you guys got the sanity, you got the genius, you got the individuality, and you got to pave the way. That's long before we even think about a Pisces world. But I think it's been a really good show. I really appreciate Vicki and how all this worked out. The thing I would say is you can't go wrong with a visit.
Yeah.
And you got the rest of it all brought to you. And it'll all be on the internet in a couple hours, everybody. Next week, we're juggling a couple people, but we're going to keep doing this for at least 7 more weeks to do the unstuck thing. So.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, everyone.
Just like Nixon, the Capricorn.
Hey, after the recording is off, can I show you what I've been working on this week?
Yes, you can. And we'll say good night to our YouTubers. Thanks.